today's video is about the bit of news that came recently, about yesterday, about a certain spec being nerfed. Now, you hear spec being nerfed, then you hear healer being nerfed, and then you go, okay, what type of nerf did Holy Paladin receive now? You know, let's get ready. What are we looking at? We are looking at a 6% healing nerf across the board to Holy Paladin, except not to Restoration Druid. So that's where players got a little bit weirded out. Some players got a little bit angry, especially, of course, the Resto Druid players themselves were like, wait a second, what's going on? Why are we the ones getting nerfed? Now, the first thing that happened is we have seen a bit of a divide, because some players are going, dude, are you blind? This is the healing in Mythic Raiding. Resto Druid is comfortably ahead of the other specs ever since Holy Paladin has been nerfed. Resto Druid has the highest healing right now. And then, you know, just look at the rankings. You know, you can check the top healings for most of the bosses, and Restoration Druid will make up for the majority of the specs in the raid. And then there is, of course, the other camp. The other camp is like, dude, look at the Mythic Plus. Do you really think that this 4.9% in 25 plus keys should be nerfed in healing? Right? Let's just clear this out. I'm here today for a PSA. Number one, this, especially nowadays in Season 2, the HPS, the total HPS of a healer in Mythic Plus doesn't really matter whatsoever, compared to the raid at least. This is the current HPS in Mythic Plus of healers on average. Do you see the difference here? No. There is a 60.8 for the super OP spec of this season, and then there is a 60.2 and a 61.6, 59.5. You know, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't mean that having more HPS in Mythic Plus means you're more powerful. It doesn't whatsoever. So having a nerf in HPS, in total healing in Mythic Plus, is not necessarily because you are too strong in Mythic Plus. Resto Druid might have gotten top damage and become the meta spec because of their damage in Mythic Plus and not because of their very powerful healing. Also, it is also true that their healing in the raid was too strong. It is true that in the raid, constant throughput, so constant healing, especially HOTS, especially, you know, constant AoE healing becomes stronger the later you are in the tier. That's when you all have more HP, you all have more gear, you take less damage, and the bosses have been nerfed and they do less damage, so you don't die to one-shots as much, you don't die very quickly as much anymore, so you give specs with tons of constant healing like a Resto Druid way more room to make their toolkit work. At the start of the season, at the start of the raid, when everything hits like a truck, where you die in 3 hits, you know, where everything is much more dangerous, you get much more value out of specs like Discipline, out of specs with big instant heals like Evokers, like Resto Shamans, compared to something like a Druid or a Mistweaver Monk. So later down in the tier, it also makes sense for a spec like Resto Druid to be a little bit stronger overall. Now, however, there is a reason why this nerf happened. As Blizzard pointed out, this adjustment is intended to be a near net neutral change in overall healing throughput to give room for the new Grove Guardian's talent. And that's where you have the question for today. We have talked about the 10.1.7 changes of Druid and of Mistweaver Monk, who both are going to be receiving changes. However, there is a drastic difference in these changes. The TLDR for Druid is this. Druid is receiving these two talents to replace some of their older talents that were not really being taken. So now you have an option to take Grove Guardians empowered by Wild Synthesis. The TLDR is that now you have a 3-charge spell on a 20-second recharge that is going to spawn a Grove Guardian. This Grove Guardian is going to immediately Swiftmend the target, and then it's going to Wild Growth, and then it's going to spam Nourish, about like 9 or 10 casts of Nourish. You have 3 charges, which means you can pop them out all at the same time, and have basically a 1-minute cooldown spell that spawns 3 treants that help you healing. This was done to help the spot healing of Resto Druid. To help single target healing, right? You target the tank with 3 treants in a row. You're gonna have 3 treants spamming Nourish on the tank for 15 seconds, right? It helps with the spot healing. which is something Resto Druid has problems with, because after Swift Mend, they are sort of out of sorts on how to strongly heal a particular target or a couple of targets quickly. So this was going to help them with that. There is a problem though. What Blizzard is doing by doing this is saying these talents are so strong that we are going to nerf your entire healing done by 6%, because if you take these two talents, you become that much stronger. So number one, this puts on the problem now that druids have. They have to take these two talents. The entire talent tree has been nerfed. Your entire healing has been nerfed by 6% because these two talents exist. And these are new talents because these are replacing talents you were not taking before. So now you have to drop two of your talents that you were taking before, or two other talents. You have to choose maybe between, of course, the Circle of Life and Death and Master Shapeshifter that is being added now in 10.1.7. Maybe you wanted to take Adaptive Swarm plus Unbridled Swarm in Mythic Plus. Maybe you wanted to take Power of the Archdruid. Maybe you wanted to take Improved Regrowth. Anything you wanted to take, now you can't because you are forced to take these two talents. The other problem with this change of Druid is that those are two talent points supposedly doing 6% of the healing out of 30 spec points and 33 class points available for the class. To get those new options, you have to give up 2 spec points because they are replacing two talent points you weren't using before. And they are not even mandatory. They're not free talents that you take at the start of the tree, talents that you take in the first rows, or even talents that are supposed to be OP, like the ones at the bottom of the talent tree. They are bang on in the middle. On top of that, to add insult to injury, they are still keeping this as an option with Nourish. So basically, Blizzard is saying, you know, this talent nobody takes, this talent that is super weak, this talent that we don't know what to do with because druids just refuse to use this. Well, now we're going to put it next to a talent for which we had to nerf your entire kit by 6%. I wonder which of the two is stronger. I wonder which one of the two is worth taking now. That's the weird part, you know? So, nerfing everything about Druid by 6% because you think this is very powerful does not seem the right approach, okay? That's what I mean. It is going to constrain Druid too much for going for these two talents. So it might feel a little bit frustrating for a Druid to be losing 6% of your total healing just because of these two talents, which will effectively become mandatory because now Blizzard is expecting you to be at a certain power level because of these two talents. Now, truth be told, for everyone who has not been on the PTR to test this, these talents are very strong. Perhaps not in terms of healing, it's not like churning out some 15 Echo Spirit Bloom of an Evoker or something. These two talents in a combo are very strong. They are going to give so much more freedom to a Resto Druid, as well as so much more variance in what they can do by freeing up time for the Druid. And this is particularly good in Mythic Plus as well, to give more spot healing during difficult phases. You can dump out the 3 Grove Guardians, 1 on each DPS player, for example. It is going to help quite a bit. It still have some issues. I've seen some druids complain about this, even though they didn't quite realize, I'm sure, how powerful this can become. They were like, the stuff that is cast by these guardians doesn't scale with your stuff, with your mastery, with your extra buffs based on the hots you have out. The wild growth cast by these 3 ends doesn't count, etc, etc. It doesn't count because it's too strong. It would be incredibly overpowered if it started synergizing even with your mastery on top of that. So even without that synergy, it is still a very good quality of life, a very powerful quality of life change for Resto Druid. So it might even have been warranted to receive a nerf as a compensation. It just feels bad that it's a nerf across the entire board, right? Perhaps it could have been handled a different way, but the intention is still correct. It is still correct that Druid is to be adjusted based on these two new talents they are receiving at this point in about 3 weeks in 10.1.7. Just to point this out to everyone who goes on, maybe reads the patch notes, gets told the patch notes, gets linked the new changes to 10.1.7 and reads the nerf to Resto Druid and think it's a travesty. It's not. Based on what's coming in 10.1.7, it's a reasonable adjustment for the spec. So hoping we can avoid at least a few people getting enraged about this, we can now leave each other on this Thursday. We're starting, of course, as usual, our goodbyes to all our gracious Patreon supporters for the contribution and help to the growth of the channel, which you can still, of course, give for free. If you so wish, you can like and comment down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. So with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys on Friday. And in the meantime, no, but for real, those talents are going to help Druid a lot. Just like AC in this apartment would help the temperature a lot. Fuck.